Sir, would you like to buy milk from me? Mr. Benedict.
Yes.
How much about
That's the Henshin woman. Who? The Henshin woman. The woman who tried to kill Carl Messman with a car.
In and for the city and county of San Francisco, the district attorney of this county hereby accuses you, Rose Henshin, of a felony to wit: violations of sections 217 and 245 of the Penal Code, assault with a deadly weapon, attempted murder, and intent to commit great bodily harm. In that on the 15th day of May this year, you did unlawfully attempt to take the life of Carl Messerman. Is that your true name, Rose Henshin?
Yes.
Mrs. Henshin, the record shows that at an earlier appearance, you were advised of your constitutional right to be represented by counsel. At that time, you refused. Now that you've had time to reconsider.
I don't want a lawyer. I told you I'm guilty.
You understand that under the law, you're entitled to a defense.
I told you I don't want a lawyer. I don't want a trial. Just take me back to my cell and leave me alone.
Very well, Mrs. Henshin. Therefore, the order of this court that Mrs. Rose Henshin be bound over to Superior Court. The charge is specified in the complaint. Mrs. Henshin, would you take a seat over there, please? Mr. Benedict, may I see you for a moment? Mrs. Henshin is the reason I should be here, Sam. Obviously, she needs help.
Judge, there must be 20 attorneys out there who can plead her guilty in 5 minutes.
Sam, here's a woman who commits a brutal, vicious attack against an outstanding civic leader. Offers no explanation. Refuses to defend herself in any way. Seems deathly afraid of exercising her rights. No remorse? Personally, I feel she needs someone like you, even if she pleads guilty.
Personally?
How about it, Sam?
I'll try to acquaint Mrs. Henshin with her rights of counsel.
I thought you'd want to. You're an understanding man, Sam.
I know. Especially when I have no choice. Mrs. Henshin, I'm Sam Benedict. The judge asked me to help you.
If you really want to help me, just let me alone.
Well, as a matter of bail, I could arrange bail.
No. And I don't want a trial. No trial. Look, Mr. Benedict, I was stopped for a light. Carl Messerman passed in front of my car. I stepped on the gas to run him down, to kill him. I wanted to kill him. I told that to the police, and I'm telling you.
No matter what you did, Mrs. Henshin, you're entitled to a proper defense.
But I don't want to be defended. I wanted to kill him. I stepped on the gas on purpose.
You must have had some reason to want to kill a man like Carl Messerman.
Please understand. I just want to get it over with. Why can't you leave me alone?
I'll let you alone. After you tell me why you would want to kill Messerman. A philanthropist, a humanitarian.
Maybe I like to kill humanitarians.
Now, what does that mean? Do you expect me to believe that you ran him down on a whim? You had to have a reason for what you did.
Please take me back.
I can't defend you if you won't help yourself.
No, you can't.
Hi, Sam. Thanks. Been talking with the Henshin woman?
Been trying to. What about her?
I'm prosecuting. You gonna defend her?
I'm not sure yet.
Well, don't feel rejected, Sam. She's acted that way with everybody around here.
What are you gonna go for?
1 to 10 on each count. Of course, if Messerman dies within a year as a result of the injuries, then it's murder one.
Doesn't it bother you that she offers no reason for her actions? Even a lie?
No. Sam, whatever she is, she's sane enough to face the consequences of a vicious and brutal crime against a man who's devoted his life to the betterment of others.
Rehearsing your summation?
You call me for lunch, Sam, anytime.
What's Mrs. Hanshin like?
All I know is I never saw anyone so anxious to be sentenced. I think she's genuinely sorry she didn't kill him.
The afternoon papers say he's going to live.
Maybe that's a break for both of them.
Just a minute, please, Mr. Benedict.
Dr. Hanshin, Mr. Benedict.
Oh,
Rose Hanshin is my mother.
come in, Doctor.
I better check with Messerman's lawyer and see if he contemplates a damage suit.
If Harry Beam's his lawyer, and I'm almost certain he is, you can bet on it.
Yeah.
These can wait. Who are they out there?
A divorce case and a bigamist with 3 wives. He's got trouble, Mr. Benedict.
Sounds like it.
He's been passing bad checks.
Doctor? MD?
Yes, internal medicine. I understand you're representing my mother.
I'm attempting to, yes.
I can understand that. She's a very difficult woman.
You didn't come here to tell me that.
No. No, I wanted to tell you that I'd be responsible for her legal fees. I will give you a retainer now. If you
That won't be
mind.
necessary, Doctor. The court appointed me to act on her behalf.
Well, I realize that, but I'd like to give you your regular fee for handling the case.
Why?
I believe a professional man is entitled to just and reasonable payment for his services.
Did you carry the same attitude into your charity wards?
Your point is well taken. Thank you.
Just a moment, Doctor. I don't think I saw you in court this morning.
No.
Were you at your mother's first arraignment?
No.
Have you seen her since she's been in jail? Visited her? Talked with her?
Why the cross-examination, Mr. Benedict?
Because I'm representing a client who refuses to defend herself. A woman whose reasons for attempting to kill a man are buried in some kind of emotional deep freeze. Now, I might get some of the answers out of these books, but the real answers, the answers that count, have got to come from somewhere else. And my client is your mother. Come on in, Doctor. So that's why I've been cross-examining you, Doctor. I want to find out why a man like you comes to me instead of his mother.
No, you're right. A man can't expunge his guilt by paying 30 pieces of silver. But somehow I have to help.
Well, the best way you can do that is to help me to understand your mother. Sit down, Doctor.
Oh, I don't know if I can. You see, I have no feeling for this woman. She has none for me. About the only thing we ever had in common was hard rock poverty and Coldwater Flats.
Why?
Well, because somewhere, somehow, my mother lost the meaning of life. As long as I can remember, she's been a brooding, isolated woman, sitting in a rocking chair, wrapping the past around her like a shroud.
And just what did that past consist of, Doctor?
Dachau.
Dachau? Your mother spent the war in a concentration camp?
4 years, yes.
And you don't understand the reason for her condition?
I can understand what a cancerous growth could do to my body, but I can't live with it. You know, I was almost 15 before I could laugh at something without feeling guilty. I was suffocating on her self-misery. If I hadn't left her, cut her out of my life, she'd have turned me into what she is. And maybe she already has.
I don't think so. After all, you came here today.
Sorry to bust in, Sam, but I think this might have some bearing. I'm afraid you lost your bet.
You've heard from Carl Messman's attorney?
Yes, Harry Beam. He says he has an open and shut case for a 6-figure damage suit. But Messman told him that under no circumstances would he file any kind of suit against Mrs. Hanshin.
That's hard to believe.
Why is that?
Do you know Carl Messman?
No.
Did your mother ever mention him? Speak of him in any way?
No.
For your mother to have done what she did to this man, they must have had some kind of relationship. Something between the two of them.
I'm sorry if there's anything I don't know about it. But honestly, Mr. Benedict, if there's anything I can do to help.
Yes, there is. Why don't you go and visit your mother?
Thank you.
Carl Messman.
Room 302.
Thank you.
Come in.
Mr. Benedict,
Yes. How are you feeling, Mr. Messman?
thankful to be alive. My daughter, Cindy. This
Hello.
is Mr. Benedict.
How do you do?
He told me over the phone that you are Mrs. Hanshin's attorney.
Court appointed.
What is going to happen to her,
Why should you care?
Mr. Benedict?
She'll be sentenced,
And go to prison?
unless I can prove that her actions are justified.
Justified? That's ridiculous.
Are they justified?
What reason could anybody have for wanting to kill my father?
A woman I never met. I don't know.
Are you sure you don't know her?
Well, of course I...
How can you be sure? After all, you only got a brief glance at her at the time of the accident.
I have studied this picture of this woman, trying to recall anyone I might know who might have looked like her.
Mr. Messman, you have a marked Middle European accent.
In spite of all these years in this beautiful country, I still have, yes.
How many years have you been here?
I will not stand for any more of this, Mr. Benedict. I don't know why you keep bothering my father with this kind of questioning, and I don't know what on earth it has to do with that woman.
Cindy, my dear, I asked Mr. Benedict to come here. He's only trying to do his duty to his client. I am happy to answer any question he has to ask. I have been here for almost 18 years now.
Since right after World War II.
Yes.
How did you spend the war years?
I have spent 4.5 years, Mr. Benedict, in a concentration camp.
You're lucky to be alive. I can imagine it must have been terrible to have spent 4.5 years at a place like Dachau.
Why did you say Dachau? There were many camps.
Was it Dachau?
Yes.
Were you a prison guard at Dachau?
I won't stand for any more of this. Dad, you've been through so much. Mr. Benedict, would you please leave?
I'm sorry, miss. I'm not trying to hurt your father. I'm only trying to be honest with him, as I want him to be honest with me. Mrs. Hanshin was at Dachau, too. I'm trying to find out if there was anything in the past, real or imagined, that might have provoked her act against him.
Of course. I understand. Does that answer your question as to whether I was a guard or a prisoner there?
Yes, it does.
And this brings up a very interesting point, Mr. Benedict. Rose Hanshin. You see, I do not know how many 100,000s were subjected to this living hell. We were not names. We were not faces. We were animals. Animals who could think and recognize only one thing. As long as we were breathing, we were still alive. Many times, Mr. Benedict, many times, I couldn't even recognize my closest friends. If I ever did see her there, how could I be expected to to remember Rose Hanchen.
I'm sorry to have brought all this up. Thank you for your cooperation. Thank you for not bringing a suit of damages against my client.
I bear no ill feeling towards this unfortunate poor woman. And since I know that she suffered so much too, well...
Are you all right?
Yes, my darling, I am.
Why are you bothering me again?
For many reasons. Number one, I'd like to get you out on bail.
Why should I go outside? I don't mind it here. A cold one-room apartment, a bench in a button factory, a prison cell. What difference does it make?
Nobody should feel that way, Mrs. Hanson. Particularly you. Didn't you have enough of imprisonment at Dachau?
How did you hear of that?
Your son.
So he found time to break away from his important medicine to come to see you.
Yes.
What did he say about his mama?
Enough to convince me that your attack on Karl Messerman is tied in some way, with the concentration camp.
Oh.
Did you know Karl Messerman at Dachau?
I knew him.
He says he didn't know you. He didn't know you. He didn't recognize your picture in the paper. Didn't recognize your name.
He said that?
Now, if you did know him, Mrs. Henson, how did you know him? In what way? What could have led you to try to kill a man who went through the same suffering that you did? A man who has devoted his entire life ever since to helping his fellow man.
Helping his fellow man? Karl Messerman? That butcher? That bloody Judas? Trying to make a bargain with God.
What bargain?
14 I know of. 14 for sure. And only God knows how many more.
What 14? Who were they?
My father, my mother, my husband. He was a murderer, a paid informer for the Nazis, selling the lives of those nearest and dearest to him to save his own filthy skin. That is your great humanitarian, Mr. Benedict. That is your Karl Messerman.
Can you prove this, Mrs. Hanson?
I don't have to prove it. I know it.
Will you testify in court?
Why should I? When I saw him crossing that street, when I crushed him with my car, my life was over. Now I only hope he dies too.
My name is Henry Tabor. I called about seeing Karl Messerman.
Oh, yes, Mr. Tabor. Mr. Messerman's daughter is waiting to see you. She made a very definite point of wanting to speak to you.
Thank you. Miss Messerman? I'm Henry Tabor. I'm an associate of Mr. Benedict.
I didn't expect anyone as young as you, Mr. Tabor.
Well, I expected to talk to your father.
I'm sorry, but you're not going to. No one from Mr. Benedict's office is going to see or talk to my father again until that woman's trial is over. Didn't I make myself clear?
Perfectly. You smoke?
Yes. No, thank you.
You know, it's interesting.
What?
A young, beautiful, unmarried girl like you doesn't usually have such a well-developed maternal instinct.
I see you're also a practicing psychiatrist.
No, I'm a lawyer. And as a lawyer, I think your father should know what Mrs. Hanchin is accusing him of.
That is exactly why I'm not going to let you see him. First, Mr. Benedict implies something horrible about my father. And now you tell me this woman accuses him of something more. Look, Mr. Tabor, why don't you find yourself some nice ambulance and chase it?
If I were accused of killing 14 people, I'd want to know about it.
Well, anyway, I hope they've been treating you all right.
I have a bed, I have food, I have water to wash with.
Mother, there's more to life than that. Why can't anyone get you to understand that?
You're really interested in me.
I'm trying, Mother.
You know, it's funny. It's been over a year that you've called me last. And now we're talking over the phone like this.
Winter comes, can spring be far behind?
Come in, Miss Benson.
What's your first name?
Henry.
Well, then, Henry, you call me anything you please. But don't you call me Miss Messerman. Hank, have you ever loved somebody so much you knew they couldn't do any wrong? Have you ever been so proud to be a part of somebody that you felt holy?
Cindy, what happened tonight? What did your father tell you?
He told me everything. My father is a fraud. His charity didn't come from his heart. It came from his conscience. What kind of charity is that? I can still hear him telling me about man's duty to man, about our responsibility to those who are less fortunate. He murdered those who are less fortunate to keep me alive. Oh, it's a great life, Henry Tabor. A life to be proud of.
Look, Mr. Messerman, right now your daughter's in a bar trying to drink herself into the gutter. You're in a hospital. Rose Hanchin's in prison, emotionally a vegetable. All because of something that happened 20 years ago. Don't you think it's time we got down to the truth, all of us?
Everyone talks about the truth. All I can think about right now is that I've lost my daughter.
Why have you lost her? Is it because you lied to her? Or is it because you lost yourself a long time ago?
No.
Then what is it?
When Rose Huntington was at Dachau, she was an angel in the jungle. Right under the noses of the Nazis. She was helping the sick, trying to give hope to those who had none. She was everywhere, all the time. A saintly woman who was loved very much. And courage. I cannot tell you how many times she risked her life for the others.
Why haven't you shown the same kind of courage?
You believe that I was trying to defend myself by not telling you about this? It was Rose I was trying to help.
I don't think I understand that, Mr. Messelman.
No. Oh, how could you understand? Just as you may well not understand the Rose Huntington you know was the loving woman I just described. But that is because you were not there when they brought her father, mother, brother, and husband to march them off to the firing squad. You didn't see her running, screaming, trying to claw her way in so she could die with them. And those Nazi guards throwing her off, laughing at her, kicking her into the dirt. That was the day Rose Huntington truly died.
Were you responsible for their deaths?
No.
And why have you lied to me? Why haven't you told me all this before?
Because I am a coward. It was common in those days for those who lost their loved ones to look with suspicion and loathing hatred at those who were still alive. And so it was with Rose Huntington toward me.
You were talking about being a coward.
I'm a man of position in this community. I am proud of the respect and reputation I have achieved. And most of all, there is my daughter. That is why I was terrified of any possibility that Rose Huntington's false accusation ever come to light and destroy my beautiful world.
Unfortunately, by withholding the truth, you've almost succeeded in destroying your daughter.
But at least now you know I told you the truth.
Have you?
Hank, what should I do?
The first thing you have to do is make sure of what you're saying. Now, are you sure your father's guilty?
Yes.
How do you know?
Well, you planted this seed of doubt in my mind, so I asked.
And he admitted it?
No. I just saw it written all over his face.
Cindy, that isn't evidence enough to convict your own father.
Evidence? Well, if you want evidence, then you just go do what I did before I judged him.
And what did you do?
I talked to a man. A man who was in that prison camp with both of them. A man named August Brower.
I know what you want to talk about. You want me to talk about the time I want to forget. I want to talk about ice cream, baby, and just living. And you want to talk about 6 million headstones. You know, Mr. Tabor, when I came over this country on the boat, on the way over, I took all those dreams and I threw them overboard. Like a child, I acted out the whole thing. I went to the railing of the boat, and I says, dump all those memories overboard, August. And I did. And I never think of it anymore. And I lost people there, too. I lost people there, too. If Rose Hankin had not tried to think of it anymore, she would not be in trouble. Why did she have to look back? I never look back. Why should I? I would see the smoke from the crematoriums. Why did she have to look back?
Will you answer some questions for me?
Do you want to know about Carl Messerman like his daughter did?
Yes. I just want to know the truth.
Who knows what was the truth?
Mrs. Hanshin blames Messerman for the deaths of her family.
I could tell you she was right. And I could tell you that they were conducting religious services and that Messerman reported them. And I could tell you that he had to, that the Nazis had quarters and he had no choice. I could tell you all that.
Are you telling it to me?
I will tell you only what I told that beautiful child Cindy last night. I will tell you what I told you today. I drowned all those memories on that ship coming to this country. She can believe what she wishes, and you can believe what you wish. I think today I will have chocolate.
Mr. Brower, thank you very much. We may have to subpoena you to appear at Mrs. Hanshin's trial.
If you wish, but I will tell them no more than I'm telling you. You want some ice cream, Mr. Tabor?
No, thank you.
Call me August. All my friends call me August. Come around Wednesday. Big celebration. 14th anniversary of my citizenship.
Thank you.
Sam, I've known Messerman for 15 years. We play pinochle a couple of times a month. We serve on several charitable boards together, so if you'd like someone else to sit, I'll see the presiding judge and disqualify myself.
You've known Messerman 15 years, and I've known you as long. I'm satisfied.
Despite what I just told you?
Because of what you just told me.
But you've just told me that you're going to ask for probation.
The brief will be on your desk in the morning.
Now, you know that probation is more than a simple act of giving or denying or temporizing clemency. A judge considering probation is left alone to consider the feelings of people he doesn't know and who may like or dislike the defendant for a host of immaterial reasons. It comes down to me, Sam. Me. Left alone in utter and desolate contemplation. To listen to voices, including my own, while my crutch, the law, stands useless in a corner.
Judge, you said you have feelings. Right now, I'm not interested so much in how you feel, but simply that you do feel. The man I want on the bench at the hearing needs to have all the feeling in the world, because that's what Mrs. Hanshin's trouble comes down to, the world. I don't want justice administered through a pane of glass. I knew you and Messerman were friends.
I suspected you did.
It comes down to this. I would have been very bothered if you hadn't called me in and said what you just did. But in saying it, you made me feel very secure. Don't disqualify yourself.
Then I take that as a vote of confidence?
A landslide.
Thanks, Sam.
My pleasure, Judge.
And the state contends that the defendant, Rose Hanshin, did willfully and maliciously violate sections 217 and 245 of the California Penal Code. Brutally and without provocation, the defendant attempted murder, assaulted with a deadly weapon, and intended to do great bodily harm upon the person of one Carl Messerman. Further, the state vigorously opposes any probation in this case. The cause of justice would not be served by returning this defendant to society before the expiration of the full sentence the state demands and her crime calls for.
Mr. Benedict.
Your Honor, the defense takes exception to 4 words used by the prosecution: willful, malicious, brutal, and unprovoked. They have no bearing whatsoever on the crime committed by the defendant. The state argues that sections of the penal code have been violated, and that is that. Actually, what has been violated is mankind. Mankind reduced to Rose Hanshin. If the prosecutor is seeking a proper place to put the guilt, then let him place it where it belongs, on the conscience of humanity. For in the trial of the people versus Rose Hanshin, humanity is a co-defendant, and while humanity cannot testify, its faceless presence will be felt here today, and it will testify through the lips of the witnesses for the defense.
In the 16 years you've been a traffic officer, have you handled many accident cases?
Sometimes 3 or 4 a week.
After an accident, do all drivers react the same way?
Pretty much. For instance, there are those who cry, those who actually tremble out of fear and reaction, and those who just sit behind the wheel unable to move.
When you talked to the defendant after the accident, how did she react?
She didn't. She showed no feeling. It was as if she hadn't hit anyone.
Did you have a conversation with her while she was sitting in her car?
Yes, sir, while we're waiting for the ambulance. I asked her what had happened. I recall I asked her if her foot had slipped off the brake. She turned to me and she said, "Officer, I stepped on the gas pedal on purpose." I thought she was kidding. But then she said, "I meant to kill him. I hope I did."
I meant to kill him. I hope I did. Did she say anything else?
Nothing.
No more questions.
Mr. Benedict?
Officer, did the defendant weep at any time?
No, sir.
Did she smile?
Sometime they do if they're very scared out of nervousness. But she didn't.
Did she show any emotion?
No emotion whatsoever.
No love, hate, fear, nothing?
No, sir, nothing. She just sat there like stone. Like nothing human.
Nothing more, Your Honor.
You asked me about feelings. We had to block them out. Most of us did.
Why did you block them out?
To keep from going insane, we were being torn apart. Torn by great fear, torn by great hate. Hate for those who were doing terrible things to us. Fear that we would not survive them. And that was a real tragedy. An absence of our feelings. Feelings which we could not permit ourselves to have. Many of us became monsters. We had no way to turn except upon each other.
Now, you said you were in the same barracks with Mrs. Hanshin. For how long?
About a year.
Did you know her well?
Very well.
Did you see her every day during that year?
Except for a period of about 2 weeks.
What happened during those 2 weeks?
They took her to an experimental hospital. She survived. They returned her.
With or without the ability to feel?
With. She kept her human dignity. When others forgot the word trust, she remembered. When others forgot ethics, she continued to live by them. But you must not judge the others. You saw pictures of what happened. You read what happened. They were beaten, starved, tortured. And all they could look forward to was a trip to the crematorium. The real tragedy was not death, but what it took to survive.
How did you first meet Mrs. Hanshin?
She risked her life to help me when I was sick. She risked her life to help others. And then she, too, lost the ability to feel. She saw her husband, her parents, her brother, pushed in front of a firing squad. And after that, she became like the rest of us.
Why did they take her family in a group to be shot like that?
I forget this. They broke some camp regulations. They were reported.
Who reported them? Mr. Brower, who reported them? You're sworn to tell the truth, Mr. Brower. Who reported Mrs. Hanshen's family to the Nazis?
There were rumors.
Speak up, please, Mr. Brower.
People believe what they wanted to believe. They lived on rumors. There was nothing conclusive about the whole thing.
You're evading the question, Mr. Brower.
A camp informer reported them.
Who was that informer?
I cannot tell you.
Mr. Brower, Anira is on trial as well as a defendant. We need to know as much as we can about that time. Now answer counsel's question.
Your Honor.
Mr. Messerman?
Your Honor, I can answer the question.
If the court please, the defense would like to excuse this witness and call Mr. Carl Messerman.
Very well, Mr. Benedict.
Your Honor, when you said we were judging a time here as well as a defendant, you were most accurate. Mr. Carl Messerman was a part of that time. He was in the same camp as the defendant and in the same barracks during the period that she was there.
Mr. Messerman, do you wish to be sworn as a witness for the defense?
I do, Your Honor.
Come forward. The witness may step down.
What is that man doing here?
I think he's going to help you.
Help me?
You solemnly swear
It's
the
possible.
testimony you're about to give
I don't understand. Why would he help me?
Maybe he has to.
The help you got.
I do.
State your name, address, and occupation.
Carl Messerman, San Francisco, retired.
Would you tell the court what occurred at approximately 2:30 in the afternoon of the 30th of last month?
I was run down by an automobile, driven by the defendant.
And yet you are here to testify on behalf of Mrs. Hanshen?
I have a great feeling of guilt, Mr. Benedict, about this whole matter. It began in the concentration camp where Mrs. Hanshen and I first met, and where we witnessed such horrors as the world has never seen. And Mrs. Hanshen was one of the victims of that horror.
Weren't you?
I was a victim, but in another way.
Didn't you suffer as much as any of the other prisoners?
I did, but in another way.
Would you explain that other way?
I was privileged.
Will the witness please speak up?
I was privileged by the Nazis. I worked for them as an informer. I informed on Rose Hanshen's family, and they were shot because of my report.
Did the Nazis force you to become an informer?
I had a family on the outside, and they were safe as long as I did my work. And then I wanted to live too. I remember I had only one feeling left, a feeling for self-preservation. And that feeling is still with me. It has kept me from being a man, a whole man as the Lord made me. I wanted to do something about that, so I came here. I should have spoken up sooner, but I knew it would destroy me. And then that feeling for self-preservation took over, just like in the camp. Your Honor,
Mr. Benedict, what happened to us in that camp made us what we are. The beasts came in and they took over and they changed us into beasts. It's very hard to shake off what they did to us. They changed us into something evil. They stole our soul. What Mrs. Hunchen did to me, she was made to do by what happened to her 20 years ago in that camp. I say the responsibility is not hers. Doesn't it belong to the world that let it happen? Doesn't it?
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Rhodes?
No questions, Your Honor.
Court will be recessed for 30 minutes.
Is there any legal cause why judgment should not be pronounced at this time?
None, Your Honor.
Will the defendant please rise? Mrs. Henson, despite the severity of the charges against you, certain pertinent information has come to my attention. This information, combined with the evidence here, tends to mitigate the severity of your crime. Nonetheless, you have committed a crime which this court cannot condone. I've read and considered the probation report, and the defendant having pled guilty to both counts of the complaint as charged, it is now my duty to pronounce sentence. Rose Henson, I sentence you to serve 1 to 5 years on each charge to run concurrently. However, this sentence is suspended on condition that you serve 1 year in the county jail and 5 years on probation. This court stands adjourned.
Father?